Hello everybody from the holy city of Jerusalem in the state of Israel, the one and only Jewish state. And over here you can see Israel's Knesset. I have to show you, at nighttime it's lit up in blue and white. It looks incredible. But look at this view, absolutely spectacular. And I have to tell you, being here, one of the things that I find so moving, it gives me shivers and it gets me really emotional, is just seeing young Jewish Israeli kids walking around, little ones, toddlers, young kids, and just seeing them, when you consider the context, the history of the Jewish people, the nation of Israel, and to see this, that we've got a young, living, vibrant people still alive, rebuilding, it's just incredible. And someone who understands history at a much deeper level, that understands that what we do really matters, that understands the meaning of speaking out for Israel and the Jewish people, is Glenn Beck. And Glenn, I want to show you this clip of Glenn Beck where he's speaking at a PragerU conference, where he's talking about rising anti-Semitism on the left, but also on the right. And I'm sure Glenn has been very up close and seeing all of that happening. And he spoke about his time visiting Auschwitz, and how for a long time he has been thinking about what happens when the world descends into darkness. What do I do? And what will we do? I want you to watch this really powerful clip of Glenn, and then I'll see you on the other side for some further thoughts, because I have some things to say about this.
We are living in epic times. Historians will look back at this time in our history, in global history. Everything is going to change. It's not a matter of if, it's only a matter of when at this point. Everything is going to change. And we all have to decide right now, who are we? I took my kids to vacation in Israel, 2008 or 10. And they had never been. My wife and I had never been. And I said, for vacation, I told my wife, let's go to Israel. She said, fine. I said, but we have to stop first in Auschwitz. Yeah. And I said, you can't understand Israel if you don't understand why it was created in the first place. And she said, the first thing she said to me was, you are no longer allowed to plan our vacation. And we went, and we stood at the gates of Auschwitz, and I gathered my children around me, and I said, right now is the time we're going to decide who we are as a family. We're going to decide if this evil will ever poke its head out again, who will we be? Because if we don't make that choice right now, you won't make that choice. You will end up being on the wrong side, because it will happen incrementally. I ask you tonight, if you haven't made that choice, will you be someone who will stand in front of a Jew? Will you be someone that will say, come, I will feed you, I will hide you? Because I have news for you, they'll come for the Jew, and then they'll come for you after. It doesn't stop with the Jewish people. Who will you be? When we were at Auschwitz, I had found this wonderful old lady. She was 16 at the time of the Holocaust, and she was Christian, and she and her family saved about 100 people. And after she spoke to our family, I asked for just a few minutes with her, and I said, I carry an enormous weight and responsibility. I feel these things are coming again. And I know the righteous Gentile, I know that righteousness exists in all of us. How do I water it? How do I help have that spring up in people? How can I prepare? And she looked at me, and it was so amazing. She looked at me and she said, Glenn, you misunderstand. The righteous didn't suddenly become righteous. They just refused to go over the cliff with the rest of humanity. They remembered what was true. They remembered what they were taught as little children. They refused to go along with everyone else, then suddenly changed their mind.
So really powerful words from Glenn Beck. And as I said, he's been on this for a long time. Back in 2011, 2012, on his Fox News show, he went to Israel. As he said, he went to Poland. And he's been wondering for a while. He understands that Jewish people have been incomparably targeted for persecution, that anti-Semitism is a unique hatred in the world. It is the canary in the coal mine that signals a country, a nation, a civilization going towards chaos and darkness. And he told me when I interviewed him, I don't know if you've seen my interview on JTV, but definitely worth checking out. He said that it haunts him, this idea that people could be silent in the face of evil. And he is haunted by the fact that he might not be someone that will stand up. Now, of course, he has shown that he is willing to stand up. But you know what's been painful and hard to see is that in his own camp, in his own political circles, the conservative circles, there is rising hostility to Israel and the Jews. And of course, the fact that they often come together shows there was never really a separation between the two. But Glenn now is actually going to start to be increasingly tested, because he will have parts of his audience that will start to sympathize with that, will start to join that tide. And for him, it may be, in terms of his own voice, in terms of his own career, in terms of his own business model, increasingly challenging for him to be super outspoken for Israel and the Jewish people. And so now he's really going to start having to face that test that he said he so feared having to. But it's clear that he does, in his heart, have that moral clarity. And as you saw in that speech, he is showing that kind of stand. But, you know, one of the other things that I thought and felt when seeing that speech and thinking about what Glenn said is that, in the end, we as Jews and supporters of Israel are very focused on the fate of Israel. But, you know, we have to realize that actually everything that we've been seeing over the past few years, it's not really just about the fate of Israel. In some ways, we know the fate of Israel. We know the fate of the Jews. We've been through so much. Been on our own throughout all of history. You know, we say, oh, what happens if we're abandoned by America? What if we're on our own? We've always been on our own. 1948, we're on our own. America thought, yeah, we'll recognize Israel, but let's see if they win this. They didn't really give much military support. And so we're going to be fine. The question actually is, which Glenn was kind of alluding to, what will be with the rest of the world? Will they choose to stand in the light or in darkness? Will they choose to do good, to stand with goodness, to stand with Israel? Will they choose to stand for truth or not? So I said after October 7, that's going to be the real question, actually. Will this time the world choose to stand in the light? And that's kind of what Glenn was saying there. It's a choice. Do you want to fall off the edge? Or do you want to stay and maintain your morality and your integrity? That is the question that we're all going to be facing now. And we're taught that there's a Jewish idea that really at the end of history, all the nations will have to make an accounting for themselves, for how they've acted throughout history. So we should understand and have confidence in ourselves that this is not just about what we do. This is about the rest of the world's choices.
Before we wrap up, I want to share something important with you. The entire anti-Israel movement is built on one central accusation, that in 1948, Israel stole the land, and ever since, Palestinians have simply been resisting. But what if everything we've been told about this story is untrue? What if the real history of 1948 shows not Arabs being forced out, but Jews, while seeking peace, having to fight for their survival against a genocidal enemy that willed its destruction long before Israel's re-establishment? Have a watch of the trailer for our new, groundbreaking and essential documentary entitled What Really Happened in 1948. And if you want to see the full film, just click the link in the video description. In 1948, the world witnessed the rebirth of the Jewish state, the State of Israel. A moment celebrated as a miracle of survival and self-determination after centuries of persecution and the horrors of the Holocaust. Yet for decades, this event has been twisted into a narrative of theft and catastrophe, with the so-called Nakba portrayed as Israel's original sin, where Jews allegedly stole Arab land and displaced innocents in a premeditated act of ethnic cleansing. But what if this story is fundamentally inverted? What if the cause and effect are the other way around? Not Israel aggressively seizing territory and Arabs responding in self-defense, but Arabs, driven by deep-seated hatred, rejecting the Jews' legal and historical rights to live in their ancestral homeland and waging a genocidal war long before Israel's re-establishment. In this JTV Plus documentary, we're going to uncover the unvarnished truth about 1948, the centuries of pogroms and anti-Semitic violence that set the stage, the Arab leaders' explicit calls for extermination, and the defensive war Israel fought to secure its existence. We'll challenge the pervasive lies head-on, showing how Arab rejection of peace wasn't about creating a Palestinian state, but about denying Jews the right to live at all. From the Nazi-allied leader of the Arabs in Palestine, the Mufti al-Husseini, to the forgotten occupations by Jordan and Egypt, where no Palestinian state was even considered, this is the story of a conflict rooted not in displacement, but in whether the Jews deserve to live in their homeland. Join us as we debunk the myths with facts, confront the historical record fairly but firmly, and reveal why 1948 was not an act of aggression, but a righteous response to annihilation. This is what really happened in 1948. To watch this JTV Plus documentary and access much more premium content, click on the link in the video description.